Hey, welcome to the show, everybody. It is Wednesday. It is post 4th of July. Thank you for joining us. It's RQX. It's Kristi and Jared. We are coming to
Hello,
you.
hello.
Hi. How are you?
How are you? You know what? I would be better. This
If your
was
mic.
working.
Oh, well, you know what? It looks like you strangled it and murdered it. So I don't know.
It's
Uh,
in pieces. I got frustrated. I'm just, it is,
oh,
it is. It just is.
okay. All right. So it looks like it's done. It's best to upset you then over time. This is
Yeah,
it.
over time. Yeah,
Okay.
it's on the floor. Yeah, Mike is on the floor. So
Oh,
hopefully hopefully, mic drop. Hopefully my earbuds will last.
okay. Great. We there's something technical in the universe. Again, we have a technical guide. There must be some god of tech that is offering us a lesson that includes honing our audio skills with StreamYard, or perhaps
Hmm.
maybe it's a mystery with the mic setup, but something to learn for later, right?
Yeah, lessons learned.
How's your week gone?
I feel like life is good when you don't know what day it is. I mean, I guess I know it's Wednesday because we're doing the show today, so it's Wednesday.
Yeah.
And I think in the back of my mind, I've known that it's Wednesday today. But yeah, I think life is good when you don't know what day it is.
Okay then.
Would you agree?
Great. It's not every week that you get to lose track of everything. We even know what time it is technically, right? Or do we not point that out?
That we're late?
Oh shoot! See, I wasn't even going to say that. Why would we even start with that?
Because we're late every Wednesday.
We could
Oh no.
start calling it late
You
Wednesdays.
you froze a little bit.
I didn't notice.
You're good now. It's been a minute. I feel like since I've been on our show, it's been a minute, right? Are
Had a
you?
couple guests, and
You're frozen. Okay, you're not anymore.
okay. We of course, everyone who's watching, we are doing this remotely. We've both been traveling a lot. We're happy to be back, but yeah, I probably froze up for a minute.
I
Am I
guess we
still?
had the one. We did. I guess right when I came back from Colombia, we did a show, right? Oh no, I think you're frozen again.
Can you
This
still
isn't
hear me?
good. Yeah, you keep freezing. What's going on?
This is the first time I've done a virtual background, and I'm wondering if it's sucking some life out of me or something. But my background currently is too scary to not use, so we're gonna stick with this.
Okay. Well, let's get to it. What are we talking about today?
I think we
I
should
think the
start with.
first.
Oh, go ahead. You asked the
No,
question.
you go. What should we start with?
Well, maybe we talk a little bit about the webinar we just did last week.
Oh man, how cool was that? That was so fun. So we
I
just
thought
did
so.
yeah, so for those of you listening, we just did an interview with the author Michael Cremo. He authored Forbidden Archaeology. His newest is Extreme Human Antiquity, which is the book release that we hosted. And what do we have? Human De-evolution, and I think those are the three we have in our collection out of his what, five or more?
Yeah, there's a few, and I don't even want to think about it because each of them are so big. I just want us to get through the works we got to read now. They're so big and important.
They're so big, and they're dense.
Yeah,
There's a ton of information in these books, but it's all good stuff. And it
yeah,
all makes you question reality. And that's kind of something that we've been talking about a lot lately is how odd it seems that we're making new discoveries still. Is that weird to you? Because it is to me. Because it seems, like we've been on the planet long enough as a species to have made more discoveries. And he states in one of his books that we have yet to find a footprint fossil from Homo erectus.
Oh
That's a,
yeah,
that's that's a wild one for me to wrap my head around because I don't know. It just seems like, what do you think happens to the? Do you think bones just turn to dust unless they're encased in some sort of rock
yeah,
or sediment or something, right?
yeah. And
Unless
when they're
they're stuck in the strata somewhere.
yeah, and once they're found and they're released, if you don't quickly preserve them, they will turn to dust.
Hmm.
So you have a very limited period. And what's horrifying to me is when early 1800s archaeologists got into digging up Greece, and even the earliest groups that were going to Egypt, they were just more so in the Greek temples, they were throwing away the bones because the bones weren't gold, the bones weren't artifacts. And they're like, well, we don't need bones, we need artifacts. And so there was a gal, and I apologize, I cannot remember her name. For those of you listening out there, shoot us a message. But there's a woman who wrote a whole book about how the earliest archaeologists were actually Greeks, which isn't true because humans have been around longer. But the point was that these big temples where they were worshiping titans or gods, essentially the argument was being made that the bones that the archaeologists threw away were actually bones to mastodons and dinosaurs and brontosauruses that basically the Greeks would come across these massive bones and go, well, these are Titan bones. These are bones from the gods. And then they would bring them to the temples. And the point was that early archaeologists weren't concerned with bones. So they would just literally junk them. They would throw them away because they wanted the structure. They wanted artifacts that represented human works or gold, or again, just something that they thought what bones were not valuable. So we've lost some information, and then you pull up a bone, or you get, oh, this one turned to dust. So we're not dealing with nanoarchaeology. We're not dealing with we're saying that DNA is not recoverable from this dust. But it's like, why not keep it in a bin? They weren't thinking about future technologies that could have been used. So we've lost so much data from each layer.
That's just a wild thought to me to think about how many bones have existed on this planet,
You're drinking a bone right
and
now.
what?
You're drinking a bone right now. There's bone in your whatever you're drinking. There was bone in it.
In my coffee? I hope
Yeah,
not.
like in the dirt everywhere. There's like everywhere's a cemetery at some point.
It's a
Just
bone. Yeah, everything's just bone ash.
yeah, like people say they have a really deep well and they're drinking really pure water, and I'm thinking it's like you just drank really purified pterodactyl pee.
Ew.
Just saying.
Why?
Well, it's got what the body needs. It's got what the body craves. It's got electrolytes.
I don't. I don't. Just no.
Well,
Uh-uh.
you're drinking from an aquifer that's like at least been filtering water for, okay, fair enough. It's not like it's filtering water for millions of years. It's filtering water for like 30, 50,000 years. There's some aquifers like that I've drank water out of. So clearly no pterodactyls, maybe
Yeah.
mastodons.
Okay. Moving on. So I think it's a wild thought that there have been. What is that noise?
That was someone compensating with a crotch rocket of some kind.
Oh, um, I thought that was on the computer. I'm sorry. So, anyways, where I was going with this was, I think it's odd that if you think about, let's just pretend, because I mean, currently accepted history says 300,000 years, but
Imagination, let's do it.
yeah, let's just pretend, that humans have just always existed. What if, on this planet, what if that's the reality? What if humans have always existed? Wouldn't that mean that, like you said, everything's just Like, where are all of the bones? If they just turned to ash, then how would it be unless we find these fossils? How could we ever prove that humans existed that long ago?
Well, I think there's great lengths of, we have nanobots, we have nanotechnology, we have quantum science. So the reality is that how dusted, if there's literally two combined molecules of what would be an artificial structure, like, the cell phone's gone, but what is the minimum number of particles to say these three atoms or this hydrogen, this electron, these things in this order would have either been glass, plastic, um, a, a, a drink, anything like what a piece of concrete, a bone. What is the minimum number of atomic structure that would be required to be a remnant of anything of any era? So when we think of the earth churning through, like we think of, we go through layers of the earth and go, okay, well, 60 feet below the ground, we have this one set of bones from this dinosaur or that, or this era or whatever, or we have so much underwater now that wasn't. And so there's different preservation. It's the exception to being a fossil. To become a fossil is a rare thing, but we discard the concept, the notion that we'll ever be able to look down to dust, let alone look down to, again, what's the minimum number of molecules together, or pieces that would indicate that, well, this was fabric, this was something. And it's like, yeah, the structure of it's gone, and we don't know if it was a flowered curtain or if it was the chair you're sitting on, but there may be enough left, if we were able to look at something that minute, to be able to say this is artificial. And yeah, we're drinking it, or it's a tree now, but the reality is that there's enough left of the particles of the past to prove out, like that vase that we were talking about, 100 million years old, found in that layer of marble. It's like,
For,
so
for those that didn't hear that when you broke up, it's 600 million years old. Well, the only thing I heard was million years old. But that specific one you're talking about was the one that was found in Dorchester, right? Written about in the Scientific American, whatever, 1852. Is that the one? You're frozen. Oh, this is fun. I wonder if I'm frozen.
no, you're not. You're fine. So, you just consider it a solo podcast when I'm not here. And when I am here, it's a together podcast.
Okay, cool. So,
So,
anyways,
yeah.
it's 600 million years old.
So we have and it's encrusted in marble. But my point about indicating whether or not there's more to be found. So in this case, it's an artifact that we can identify, and we can say, okay, well, we can tell a story about the artifact. But what if there are bits, literally quantum sized pieces within the vase that would have never been an indicator of anything? But if we had that analytical ability, we'd be able to say, oh, we know that there was at least wine in this thing, or there was beer, or the last thing in it was, something as silly as Kool-Aid. We'd be able to know if we could analyze, and I've always just coined it nanoarchaeology. If we were able to do that, we would be seeing things that we'd be seeing in, it'd be like going from black and white television to color. It would be so significant for us it'd be unarguable, the extreme antiquity of humanity.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that that's going to happen? Do you think that that's where we're headed?
That's exactly, and for everyone listening, that's not a point. That's an easy point as to why ArchaeoX and why we exist. Is I think it's going to happen. I think it's going to happen simultaneously with how we report it and how we discuss it, because I think the young paleoanthropologists and archaeologists and there's a breed of humanity coming up now, and on the consciousness side, that it's unavoidable and irrefutable from sites like Göbekli Tepe and these finds that, again, were made over the course of the last 150 years that Michael Cremo talks about in all the books that we're talking about. There is an awareness growing of the extreme, age of modern anatomically correct humans dating back maybe forever, and that awareness is not something that is at this point dismissible.
I think you just muted yourself. Okay. Now, are you having technical issues? Yeah. Sorry, guys. This is typical for a Wednesday. Still can't hear you. Well, I'll take it. One of the cool things that was found, well, that was in Matt Bell's recent, he shared his collection of vases that he's been acquiring over the course of, I don't know, many years. And one of the interesting, there you are. I think you're back.
Hello.
There you go. One of the interesting things about these vases is there's tooling marks inside of them, and some of these vases, the opening in the top, it's like finger size, just barely enough to put a human finger in the top of. But on the inside of them, there's really precise tooling marks, like they've been lathed, But of course, we didn't have lathes back then, so how did that happen? Um, but yeah, so I think that's something that if there was some sort of a nanotechnology that we could run through the inside of these little vases that have been discovered over the last, well, that one in Dorchester was discovered in 1852, so over the last 120 something years. Um, if we could if we could perform some sort of nano archaeology experimentation on the inside of these things and see what was in them, that would answer a lot of questions for us. Like how
It,
complex was the chemistry, um, 600 million years ago?
that's what would be surprising too, is obviously, yeah, it would be expected that the material sciences would be different. What would be incredibly surprising is the structure, if they're dealing with nanotechnologies, if there's ingrained, if it's not just, for instance, a silver inlaid vase, but it's one that has solid state hard drive, if it has Wi-Fi solid state hard drive, if it's an energy creator, if it just needs to sit in the sun or have water in it. Um, we don't know if it's just a vase, if it's just a solid vase, and the ability for us to understand, maybe at first it's very chemistry related, we just, and material related, we look at the composition of the silver, where the mines that would be used for that silver. So if 600 million years ago, again, so it's a matter of playing a game of geography and the science of what is the composition of those metals. Are there any binding agents? How was it electro? How was it inlaid? And is it as simple as the technologies we understand now, or is it something way different and way more advanced? And we don't know. So, what your thoughts on? What's your feeling on whether or not?
I didn't catch that question. You are not here. Sorry, guys. I don't know what's happening. I don't
Um,
think he's got good service.
do you?
I didn't hear the question.
Do you feel that the energy around wanting to know these things is different from when you were young or from when you taught, or do you feel like there's
Oh,
a
yeah, 100%. But the reasons don't have any, well, I don't know, maybe it has a little bit to do with age, but yeah, I had no interest in history, archaeology, any ancient human or knowing where well, I don't know. I've always kind of had an interest in understanding where I came from. But as far as history or archaeology or anything like that, no. Growing up, I wasn't into it at all. But a lot of that was because, typically in school, I had a lot of coaches for history teachers, and they're really there to coach. They're not really there to teach. So it was a lot of, read this chapter and answer the questions at the end of the chapter and then turn your paper in, for them to give you a completion grade. You know what I mean? Or it was just taking a test over facts. We would just memorize facts, historical facts, and then take a test over it, But now I know that most of that history was BS anyways. So I guess it's a good thing I didn't really pay a lot of attention to it. But,
Mhm.
but yeah, now being older and awake, it's hard to not be curious about everything kind of ties together, our ancient past, archaeology, digging in the dirt, seeing what we find in the dirt, understanding how the ancients lived helps us understand how to live now. So yeah, I would say that my interest in all of these things has definitely peaked in the last few years. Not, I wouldn't say peaked. I would say it's at an all-time high. We'll say that.
Okay.
Just trying to understand and make the connections between, our consciousness and our origins and the way that we're supposed to be living now. Because I do think that the ancients, they knew a lot that we don't know. But I think a lot of this information is encoded in us, in our DNA. It's in us, and so I think that when we practice certain, um, you know, healing modalities, holistic, like meditation and breath work and yoga and sound healing and Reiki and we practice just different things. The way that we eat. Things like toothpaste, the fluoride in the toothpaste calcifies your pineal gland and that keeps you separate. So I just think that there are a lot of things that we don't know that we're learning now that maybe should be instinctual, maybe feel instinctual, like when you eat McDonald's, you feel instinctually that it's wrong. You know? Like
That's so right.
this is not good to eat. You just know that, And I think that a lot of this information is encoded in us and we instinctually feel how we should live. And there's a reason why we feel that way because if we're living that way and we're living in alignment and with our, mind, body and spirit, then yeah, I think that it's easier to connect, to see, to understand, to expand. So I think the more connected we are, the more we understand where we come from. And I don't think that understanding is always because of the discoveries that we've made. I think that some of that understanding is just inside us.
So do you think there's a on that in that spirit then do you think that the way that archaeologists or the way that we look at history, the way that we look at things today is then by observation? Does it seem to be intentional, or do you think that there is a uh, you only find the facts you're looking for? So the question then is, with these extreme human antiquities, or with the knowledge of being able to have it, like you said, it's built into our DNA, into our consciousness, whether we download it or realize it in a dream, understand it in some sort of group meditation. The reality is that we have some instincts for it, but that's not what is seems to be driving our social paradigm for our history or for who we were or are.
What do you mean?
Well, it seems to be that the resistance is so large to thinking of modern anatomically correct humans even existing past what I think the number is now 340,000, 350,000 years.
Yeah, it's pushing 400, I think.
So, which is crazy considering that all of human and modern, all the in quotes evidence for human evolution can be put on one pool table. That's it. You talked about a footprint, but there's literally the amount of evidence for humanity being evolved from the way that they're showing it can fit on a table. Yet we're finding anatomically correct human um, either artifacts or bones that are dating back post that. Where I mean, nanoarchaeology does not exist. There seems to be no
Hmm.
push for it to look at anything beyond a bone that you can grab with a hand. There's just no interest in looking at any materials left that have turned to dust. They're just like, oh, well, there's nothing we can do with it. And that's, again, maybe that's true today. So, like you said, there's not an interest in school or pushing it, but that doesn't change the fact that the artifacts that are being found are profoundly. You started, one of the things that we started with was your statement, or just the insight that we keep finding things, and they're not things that I think we're supposed to find.
Why do you
Like,
think that we're not supposed to find them?
because they don't fit the. It's that thing Cremo was talking about, that knowledge filtration. You can't
Mm.
find things that are out of date, out of time. That's it. Out of date, out of time artifacts. We're not going to date it, even though the date's wrong. It's an out of place because it's not supposed to be where it is, but but it's legitimately geologically found in whatever layer it's found in. So rather than admitting it into the histories as this artifact was found at this layer at this point in time, which they just keep filtering out find after find after find that proves modern humans being around for easily millions of years, but they won't even let it go past 300,000 when we have 1.5. We have tools at Table Mountain at 60 million years. We're dealing with the Rockefeller boot print at 120 million years. We're
What
not.
about what about the Clerk scope at 2.8 billion years? Can we talk about that?
Yeah, the Klerksdorf spheres are from South Africa, and for those, for what Kristi's bringing up is a perfect point of 2.5 to 3.5 billion year old croquet balls. They look like croquet balls.
They do. They look exactly like croquet balls, wooden croquet balls. Can't you share your screen or whatever so I can pull it up in real fast?
Um,
I'll
let
pull it
me.
up.
Okay, I will share. I'll let you share, um, present or invite, share screen. I don't know how to hand that over to you. Oh, there it is. I can share that. Oh, you already got it? Yeah. So these are, it blows my mind too, because they're like, one of the arguments for these being natural is that Mother Nature just put the lines in them. Just kidding and say it with straight face. But the Klerksdorf spheres uh, are literally just those are natural lines. Mother Earth made those lines.
Mother
Perfect.
Earth didn't make these lines. Can
That's
you
what
see these?
yeah. Uh-huh.
I
Yeah.
mean,
Three perfect lines all the way around the thing.
look at that.
You know what? They're pretty damn okay. They're not round, but what would you look like after 3.5, 2.5 billion years? Billion years. It's pretty round.
They're
And
about
and
3 billion years old, making them a true window into an earlier era of our planet. 3 billion years old. I mean, look at this. Okay, and this isn't just like look at these. Like
You know,
look. Do you
yeah,
know what I mean? 3 billion, they're 3 billion, 3 billion years old.
yeah.
What?
You know what? I want to stay on these things. Yeah, Death looks like a Death Star. So would you scroll back up on? Yeah, you have all those photos there. So to your
Yeah,
left, no, okay. So below the circle, below the three, it says 3 billion years old. So scroll down a second. Keep going. All right, that though that those dumpy rocks are
yeah.
natural.
These
These
dumpy
are
rocks?
Yes, these dumpy rocks are
Yeah,
large versions of natural concretions. So for those of you watching, these concretions, the theory goes that once upon a time, volcanoes would dump for a period of time. It was in vogue for volcanoes to dump a particular chemistry mix of molten rock into the air. And as it flew through the air like a giant snowball down a mountain, it would roll into, it would create a ball of things. This is a real thing. Okay. So I'm mixing a little sarcasm with it or a little fun with it, but these natural concrete. So follow this. So the volcano would erupt and just perfectly mix these balls, and they're called concretions. Now, concretions can also be made like the one with the fingers. If you want to highlight that one with the guy with the fingers, that they look a bit like a smashed together couple marshmallows. That is also a type of concretion. But then if we highlight the Klerksdorp spheres, they have lines on them, and they have, and here's the thing, they've been opened up, and like a tennis ball or a croquet ball, they have a fibrous material in the center. They are clearly man-made. They are made, they are constructed like a sports ball of some kind for some game or something. That must have been really fun for those of you to paint a picture in South Africa at 5,000 feet in a good old time.
so how do you explain that? How do you explain, how do you, it's 3 billion years old. How do you explain that?
I kind of want your thoughts on it.
Oh, okay. Huh? I don't know that I have any. I mean, of course I have thoughts on it, but an
I
explanation, I don't know about an explanation. You
no, I
know, maybe we, maybe, I don't know that you're going to like my explanation. And guys, this is for entertainment purposes only. Okay. This is not factual. I can't sort this. This is just cited from my own noggin. Okay. Here's what I think. It's just a continuous loop. I don't think there's a starter or ending. I just think that there's a continuous loop. And now there's all this stuff about, all these theories. I say all these theories, it's really just one theory, and I think it just came out this week that maybe the Earth is in a black hole. Maybe we exist in a black hole. I don't know. I haven't dug into this one yet, but I don't know that there's a beginning or an end. Like maybe we've just always existed, and maybe it's not always been on this planet. Like maybe 3 billion years ago, the reason why there's Klerksdorps on the planet is because we brought them here from the other planet we came from 3 billion years ago. And I just don't think that time is a thing. It's just not real. And it just is a loop. If you take time completely out of the equation, we know it's not linear and kind of does a spiral in it, and it's past, present, future all happening. So like we all, this is not new information. We all know this. So if that's the case and there is no time, then there is no beginning and there is no end. So whether it was 3 years ago or 3 billion years ago, it's okay. Uh, okay. What I think that we can't do is ignore it, which is what we've been doing, is just ignoring this evidence, these discoveries. We're not making any changes to our ideology or, our historical narratives. We're like, yeah, we found this thing. Cool. but we're not changing anything about the age of humanity? Okay, what ifs? Makes zero sense to me. Why we wouldn't just say, I don't understand what the big deal is. Why can't we just be billions of years old? Why do we have to be 300,000? Why can't we just be, why is that not okay? Obviously, there's evidence on the planet that's some sort of a being made this toy ball. It's clearly not, Mother Nature didn't put these lines on it like that. Come on. So all we need to do is just face the facts. Facts are that we're old. Maybe we should all just get over it. Uh-oh, I cannot hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Gotcha.
Sorry about that. For some
That's
reason,
okay.
yeah. Today I have never seen this error or had this problem, but it just says my mic is unplugged, just for funsies.
Oh, fun. Okay.
I was asking you if you think that it's interesting that clearly people not only had whatever technologies, but they had time for games, because I can't believe that those balls are not from a game of some kind, and there's so many of them, and they're all found around Klerksdorf. So the question is, was it like what was it, one of those top golf driving ranges where they just kicking thousands of those balls into a field one day and went, oh shit, we got to run, or there's a problem, or everybody get under the tunnels, or let's leave the planet, and they all got left where they are. But it's like clearly they had time to have fun. They
Right. There's probably mallets somewhere stuck in some kind of, you know, layers of sediment somewhere. Like a mallet used for I wonder if anybody has found any mallets for the Klerksdorp ball sphere, whatever you want to call it. And they're
you
like,
know
oh, it's just an ancient stick. They didn't know.
well, we're assuming too that they hit them. I mean, for all we know, it was like a game of baseball. They could have been throwing them. They could have been shot out of a potato cannon, for all I know.
Maybe they were playing pool with them. Maybe they're weapons. Maybe they're not toys. Maybe they're weapons. And those three lines is like the insignia of the of the whoever's shooting them.
Now we're getting somewhere. It took us a minute to find a groove, but this is it. Maybe the poor little fluffy things that they were shooting at them with, they're gone. Their bones are dust. But these were murder balls of some kind.
Murder balls.
So we
Anybody wants to know?
Inquiring
These
minds.
3 billion-year-old ancient murder balls.
Yeah, they weren't happy at all. These are just like a field of murder balls, and little fluffy things they were killing are gone, but the murder balls are left.
That's funny.
We nanoarchaeology that they're all like super blood-soaked murder dinosaur balls.
Yeah, they need to. I wonder if they've done any sort of analysis to see if there's blood on any of them. Maybe they were weapons.
So way back, so when I first learned about these balls, apparently the first show that was going to be about these, which I think was either the late 80s or early 90s, NBC was going to air it. I do remember that about the information. And the other thing is that there was literally there were scientists around the world signing and writing and petitioning. There was a group that got together that demanded that NBC do not air any information about Klerksdorf spheres, that it was completely irresponsible and shouldn't have been allowed. And they literally demanded that NBC not show this 1 hour special about them because they're not accepted science. Isn't that nuts?
So I guess that's a good question then is what makes something accepted science?
And this is the danger of peer review, which is on, they'll say, well, this is what 50 other guys who are wrong said and agreed with me. So it's peer reviewed. So peer reviewed, there's this assumption that because 50 other people, whatever, 20, 10, peer reviewed can be one guy in a respected journal, which has only gotten us in trouble recently a lot. But just because someone else has peer reviewed it doesn't mean that it's been through any other scrutinizing scientific study or there has been proof positive that a thing is right, wrong, left, right. None of that's been done. But the word peer reviewed has now been trained, I think, into a group of what we would consider degreed academics or degreed professionals in whatever their field. And if the word peer reviewed is on it, it's a blessing. It's like going into a co-op or what we wouldn't consider a food desert at a particular grocery store that won't be named that is considered healthy. And there's all these different corporate brands where because it's a healthy store, you're not going to be in a food desert where there's too much sugar or processed food, and that is untrue, and you don't know the origins. And it's the same thing. Just because it says peer reviewed and you're all peer reviewing each other, it's extremely important that people get this through their heads that peer review does not mean that there is any more scientific research done to prove or not prove something. And the actual geology of the Klerksdorf area, those spheres, is 2.5 to 3.5 billion years old, current estimates. So there's no opinion about that. And they keep mining solid material out of the ground, which is how they were discovered. And they keep mining and finding murder ball after murder ball. And they're still finding murder balls. So they really liked it a lot 2.5 to 3.5 billion years ago. But you can't refute it. So here's a bunch of people that want to keep the paradigm that an object like this couldn't exist 35,000 really years ago. It can exist 2.5 to 3.5 billion years. That's not going to work.
So what are your thoughts? So mine were obviously it was that this is a continuous loop. So 3 billion years ago, it's just, I mean, and also if everything is happening, if the past, present, and future are all happening right now, then isn't 3 billion years ago also today?
Well, if there's no time and there's only present,
Mm-hmm.
then in the past, there seems to be a physical shadow. That Klerksdorf sphere is a shadow of, it's a marker on time as we understand it, that something happened and something existed and something was invented and something was played or murdered with, or it was there.
But okay, so what about so the I keep bringing this up all the time about how weird it is that we just keep making these new discoveries because it just seems like how are we still discovering these things, right? But what if the past and the present and the future is all happening at the same time, then what if like in South Africa they keep finding the murder balls. So if maybe they keep finding murder balls in South Africa because the past is currently happening and then a new murder ball pops up in this dimension because it was just created in the past, you know, or used in the past. And then now it's like just like one day you're walking down, it's okay, like you take the same road to work every day, okay? And I'm just, I work, my office is a mile from my house and I walk the same path every day to work. And I look down all the time and I'm always looking for cool things. And then all of this sudden I've been walking this path for 6 months. Okay. And I look down and I see this really unique murder ball that I've never seen before. And then all of the sudden, so then it gets tested and it's like, oh my God, this thing's 3 billion years old.
Uh,
Well, obviously a 3 billion-year-old murder ball didn't just pop up right here on the sidewalk, right? On my way to work. But what if it did? What if it did? What if things that happened in the past materialize in the present? Is that possible?
so yeah, because we're basically scratching the surface of the idea of the split particle experiment, the idea of quantum mechanics
Mm-hmm.
proving that there's a duality of our existence through time and space, of our mind being able to manifest and create things. So if that state in our mind is not, time is not a factor in its ability to create or comprehend or imagine. So it seems to me that we could, or someone in the past, or if we're that manifestation, or we are our own thing. Either way, we should be able to take an idea or a resonance or where we're at mindfully and project maybe uh, something into the past or the future simultaneously. It would seem to be possible.
I mean, I could just be pissing in the wind when I say that, but wouldn't does it would it make because here's what I struggle with. I don't even know what reality is. I don't know. I can't, it's really hard for me to say that something couldn't be possible. It takes a lot for me to say, no, I don't think that's possible because I think that almost anything is possible. And I think that we're, it's like, what was it, Semmelweis or whatever, we should wash our hands before we, screw with babies. And then he gets murdered because of that. You know what I mean? He gets the shit kicked out of him in prison because he wants to disinfect his epidermis before touching a brand new human, which makes total sense. Now, obviously, it's accepted, and it's like, yeah, duh, everybody washes their hands. Like, you come over to my house, and it's like, you can't touch my baby for 2 weeks. You know, like, I don't care if you wash your hands or not, you're not touching my baby for 2 weeks. You got moms that are just like crazy about it. It's just a thing. So it's kind of like, to me, there's nothing that's, it's hard for me to say that something's impossible when theories have been proven over and over and over again to be true after being, somebody's been ostracized from the scientific community for some idea or concept or theory or hypothesis or whatever. And then they're, murdered in prison over it. And then so many years later, it's like, oh, ugh, maybe he was onto something. You know what I mean? And so now it's kind of like, even now, if something happens and I hear something now that seems super far fetched, I don't immediately throw it out the window. I kind of like to sit with it for a minute and think about it because I don't know. I think anything's possible. So I do think maybe it's possible that, when we make these discoveries, it's like, how did we not see this before? Maybe it's materializing in this dimension. Maybe there's some kind of significant, maybe there's some overarching game plan. You know what I mean? And really complex string pulling somewhere somebody's doing. Maybe it's source, who knows? But,
That is,
or, or
are
maybe
you
it's ourselves.
are you saying, are you kind of tying this to, or it, am I getting the sense that you're talking about fate or predestined?
Ooh, I don't know. I don't like that idea. I don't think.
I
That
don't
feels really
either.
suffocating. I don't like it. And it's kind of like, what's the point of this experience if everything's predetermined? Because then we really don't have free will.
Right. That's why it doesn't seem like it can't be predetermined, I don't think. I think we have free will,
So
personally.
then, So then that's not really where I was going with it. I was just thinking that if anything is possible, because we keep discovering, we're just now dipping our toes into quantum physics. We don't understand it. There's so much that we don't understand. It's so complex. And so because there's so much we don't understand, how do we know that we can't materialize particles aren't materializing, matter isn't materializing, from the past or jumping, it's like we can jump timelines, I think we've already done it. But
Oh,
if we can jump timelines, can't other particles?
well, that's true then. So maybe what we mistake as what seems to be fate, maybe what we do is maybe revisit that and think maybe the past has consciousness with the present, vice versa, but perhaps there are creations of ourselves that have come before us that are still simultaneously, there's a duality with that time that isn't related to a lineal space. It's just there, and it is consciously. If what if every timeline is simultaneously happening, so that if there is only the presence and the past, in the sense of it being oh, this thing happened 10 years ago, but if we look at it as in no, that period, that place with those people at that time that still exists, then you would think that, I would think it would be realistic to say that, hmm, what if there is only the, it just hit me, what if there is only the present, but present consciousness romanticizes or fears or loves or hates the past or the future? And what if we reshape, and like you say, when something manifests in the past, what if there is only the now, but our perception of the past is what changes the experience for those days and times and those people and those experiences? What if the ether itself does rewrite itself based on our romanticizing or whatever we think of the past? It's not the past affecting us now, it's us affecting the past, which changes the
Well,
future.
and that would make sense if we're just in this continuous loop.
Hmm. It does.
So what if, so what if, we both believe in reincarnation, right?
Yeah, it's complicated, but yes.
It is complicated because there's reincarnation because I feel like when we look at reincarnation, or when I think of reincarnation, I think of like being reincarnated from the past, right? But
Mm-hmm.
what if that is part of the loop too? What if, because so the point of this experience, what we think to be the point of this experience, I think you and I are kind of on the same page here, is growth and evolution of our soul, right? Expand consciousness. Um, I know that some of us on the planet feel like that we're here to serve a greater purpose, greater than ourselves. But the purpose for an individual here on the planet, I feel like is evolutionary. It's to expand your consciousness, to evolve to higher dimensions through these experiences that we have, right? So what if, because in my mind I've always thought like we must be more advanced consciously. We must be more conscious, more expanded than the past. That's not true, obviously, I don't think. But what if when we reincarnate into the past? What if that's possible? What if we're not moving into the future? If everything is
Jump.
happening, huh? Yeah, I think you said something and then you broke up. Okay, well, those that are listening. So what if we What if we reincarnate into the? You broke up. You said something. What'd you say?
Uh, I didn't. We got to back up for a comment though in a minute, so just finish that thought.
No, I want to know what the comment is. Oh gosh, which one is it? Oh wait.
Okay, so the comment reads, someone please tell me what a murder ball is. I looked it up and it says it's a game, and I know that's wrong. I think so. 3.5 billion years ago, the Klerksdorp spheres that Kristi shared, the Klerksdorp spheres are the oldest man-made looking thing on the planet. It's Klerksdorp. It's named after a town where they're mining in South Africa, and they find these balls that have these machine circles on them. They are 100% man-made. The centers of them are
They're 100% man-made. I don't know what he was saying. It's the centers on them have these lines that go all the way around. Clearly human made. Go ahead.
and I don't know. It just occurred to me. It's like, what if Kristi was just like, perhaps they were a weapon, and I'm like, they're a murder ball. Maybe they were just killing something fluffy on a field, like at Top Golf, except they were shooting them or hitting things
Like
and
David and Goliath or something, maybe they were just like,
slingshotting them. Yeah,
yeah.
maybe they were just using their minds and just
Oh, yeah. That's what I'm saying. I think that, maybe we live these lives over and over again because we didn't get to where we like until we get to where we need to be to move to the next dimension. But what if we reincarnate back into the past? You know?
yeah, you know. So you know what's important about the object is that it's man-made. It shows how great is human antiquity, and we got off. We did not get off topic. I think Kristi made a great point, which is I look at it and I think croquet ball, and it's a game, and clearly there's time for games, and but why would I assume that? The reality is that that sphere could easily have absolute microscopic elements of blood or something attached to it. And why couldn't it have been a weapon? And those are murder balls, which is just not fun compared to croquet balls, I guess.
Right. You think about like, when these old battlefields, like when I lived in Louisiana, I lived in this town called Pleasant Hill, and there was a battle there, the Battle of Pleasant Hill, and people would find cannonballs
Yeah.
in their backyard all the time. They would just walk around the
Wow.
woods and they would find these like little cannonballs, and they would be different sizes. But how do we know that those Klerksdorp murder balls weren't shot out of some sort of a cannon?
Exactly. I said potato cannon, but I'm trying to think friendly and nice. In reality, it's like they could absolutely be spent munitions that were being fired for who knows what. It could be a target range, or it seems odd to me. Again, there's so many of them over the course of these, but I don't know how many acres. So it could easily be a battlefield. We're looking at something that's remnant of prior to it turning into a hardened layer of sediment that is clearly 2.5, 3.5 billion years old. What else was laying there that rotted away? So, in the world of nanoarchaeology, keeping a chunk, like if you found a whole bunch of those Klerksdorp spheres in a chunk of stone, I would say if you can tell that there's one in there, leave it intact in situ, leave it there, keep that chunk until we have the ability to analyze the particles that are within the stone around it.
Ooh, I like that. Yeah, because there's no telling what the stone around it absorbed.
Yep. And what is preserved on the just the on the atomic scale, the reality is that there's got to be 5, 6, 80, 100 atoms left of whatever the hell the murder ball hit. There's got to be something there, whether it's grass or, but I know, I think there's material around it that would represent the technologies associated. Is it the stick they use to play whatever game it is? Is it something more complex? Whatever it is, if you would just cut out a bunch of them, leave it in a chunk, and then look at that material science. The same thing with the silver off of that vase from 600 million years. It's not just that it's silver. To make silver, you have to add a bunch of elements and chemistries to make silver. So, what is the material science behind the creation of the silver itself, the bonding of it to the vase, what the vase is actually made out of, and what's left in the vase from when you got it out of where you got. Again, we're not thinking ahead. Yeah.
Well, and I think it's important to also acknowledge, kind of what we started the show off with is that bones just disintegrate. So does every other material, basically, over 3 billion years.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be really hard to find the older, the further back in time we go, the harder it's going to be to find the evidence that we're looking for. And,
Which is,
another thing to point out too is, like, excuse me, like I think you mentioned also at the beginning of the show, you were talking about how, are we just not looking for it or looking for the right things or whatever. Something that I think is important to point out also is some of these discoveries have been made by just like farmers and, just like everyday people, just walking through the woods or whatever,
yeah,
not your typical archaeologist. But if you're not, if you're not, unless something just jumps out at you like that, if you're not
right.
schooled in certain things like geology, for example, like when we were in Belize, it's a learning curve, to look at stone and be able
Yeah,
to point out anomalies or abnormalities. You know what I mean?
yeah,
It's you unless you've got some sort of education or background in that subject matter, you just walk right by stuff. You don't see it. It doesn't jump out at you. You don't think like that shouldn't be there or that shouldn't look this way or this is out of place or time or we just walk right by this. I mean, even like megalithic stuff. I've thought back to like my childhood and how much time I've spent in the woods in my life and how many things that I've probably walked by and never thought twice about. I'm like, have I walked by megalithic structures before and just been like, that's a really big rock or that's a really big wall and just kept walking? I bet I
it's
have.
yeah. I bet you have. I think we all have.
Yeah. So I think it's important to acknowledge that it's not necessarily that we're finding things and looking away from it. It's just that I think maybe that's part of it, like how are we still finding all of these things? Just our partner just sent us an article yesterday morning about
Yes.
the in the Amazon, they're like Nazca lines almost, aren't they?
Yeah, they would look like a bit like faces.
Yeah, in the ground, and one of them stretches like 12 kilometers or miles or something. I can't remember from like
Yeah.
one town to another. It's crazy.
You
So,
know,
but it's like how is that just now being discovered? I mean, I know that the Amazon the canopy is dense, but
yeah.
have people not been walking around on this?
Well, the assumption also about the Amazon being a new space that humans weren't there, and again, thank you for deforestation, is that as they're clearing it out for 40 years, they've been clearing it out and find massive geoglyphs and locations of villages or towns or fortresses or fortifications, or that's what they're calling them anyway, but clear indications of human population and people being within a space that was supposed to be in quotes new terrain, new territory. That was untouched jungle, when in reality humanity had been there for thousands of years prior than we said it was. And we're only seeing it because they're cutting out the trees. We're only seeing it because they're
Hmm.
doing the work. So that again changes a paradigm, and it changes. We find what we're looking for and what we're not expecting. It's just so hard for us to see past our expectations. It's that part's frustrating and sleepy, I think.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. No, I agree. So what do
It's,
you think? How do you explain a murder ball 3 billion years ago?
yeah,
What's
and
your idea, Mr. It's not aliens, it's us?
clearly that was us. So that's thousands of, and by the way, they keep finding them. And, as long as they mine this material, they're finding these balls. They're not slowing down on the quantity of them. So either somebody really liked murder balls, or there was this is a popular sport, or popular, or a very big battle, because there's not just a few of them. There's a lot. So there's no way it's not human antiquity, and that is significant to not only our understanding now today, but if we've always been here. So well, where did we come from? It does make me wonder if okay, fine, we're the estimate currently is that the I feel like they think it's a good number. By the way, that's something that's been irking me for a long time about the Earth is 7 to 10 billion years old, or 7 to 9 billion years old, and the number to me just seems like a number. They're like, well, that's big enough. That's what I feel like.
Yeah.
They're like, well, I can't argue with that. Yeah, I think you can make a planet in a billion years. So yeah,
So then how do you explain okay, so how the evolution of the planet? Okay, so the planet now exists, but there was a process of cooling,
hmm
right? When
yeah.
the planet was formed, there was a cooling process that was supposed to last how long before? So let's just say if the Earth is 7 to 9 billion years old, and then there's a cooling process before, and that was like billions of years or millions of years or whatever before they say humanity could even exist on the planet. So,
Yeah.
so you've got your, microorganisms evolving and I just watched this thing. This is a little off topic, but not really. I watched this video on TikTok because I love TikTok. I was just watching this video about this guy took just a jar and put some dirt in it and a stick and like just a few twigs of green stuff, right? Put it in the jar. It was all muddy and murky, and within a matter of days, it started clearing. So the sediment settled to the bottom and the water was at the top. And then organisms started growing in it.
Yeah.
Organisms were growing, and then more and more organisms were growing. And it was like an entire ecosystem in there. Anyways, that's what I think like the beginning of the, anyways, so little bit of a rabbit hole, but that's kind of what I envision the beginning of the earth. Like, it's like it's this big boiling ball of rock and water, which makes no sense. And then it cools, and then we've got the cooling process, and then at 3 billion years, we've got some sort of a civilization, some sort of an advanced civilization on the planet making murder balls. You know, like 3 billion years
Yeah.
ago. If the Earth is only 7 to 9, can that be possible? Can that be possible?
So while you're talking about this, I'm thinking about, you mentioned the Nazca lines,
Hmm.
and specifically not the ones that look like spiders and monkeys, but the lines, like one of the lines, the longest one so far. And again, they're the way they're alkaline, the way they're designed, they seem to be like a giant earth antenna. They seem to have electromagnetic properties. It's been tested, and the longest known line is 25 kilometers, and it doesn't deviate an inch. It's 25 kilometers straight. And that's just because it runs in a jungle, which probably overtook the rest of it or made it not viable. But the thing about the straight lines is that they all, along with a lot of other ley lines, the connection of the Nazca lines to ley lines, the energetic grid of the planet, as you're talking, it makes me think when they say the cooling of so there's this, again, it's a theory that the earth was a big ball of nothing, and that it just cooled, and it's magically in orbit, and it's just the right spot from the sun, and they're okay. Then we have all this indigenous stories from around the world, or and all these mentions of before there was a moon. There wasn't a moon, and they're talking about humanity before the moon. So it's hard for me though to then think, did they have no um, did they have a cooling period when I think the ley line.
Oh, we just lost you again. Nope.
How about now?
Gotcha.
Yeah, I just randomly. This is a new one, folks. And StreamYard just kicks my mic off. So here's what I was about to say, which must be something important, which is, what if the ley lines are directly related to an intentional energy grid? That the energy grid of the Earth isn't something we just magically one day, we're kicking around our murder ball, Clarkstorp sphere game plan, and we go, you know what? I feel kind of tingly over here, and I think there's a natural energy grid. What if the design of the planet is entirely intentional from the get go? The idea that it just randomly came together with a bunch of gases that randomly settled. I think there's no way to have a global magnetic energy grid if the grid wasn't intentionally laid.
Hmm.
And
So do you
therefore,
think when the Earth was created, when the Earth was made, that these energy grids were weaved in, or do you think they just naturally settled and then were felt, discovered, or whatever by early civilizations or ancient aliens or what? Space
my
traveling
mind,
anthropologists?
my mindset has always been around, oh, we evolved, or we achieved a level of technical consciousness and awareness externally, internally, and we're like, oh, there's natural energy lines, so we should use those. I'm starting to think that, again, we have a theoretical understanding, oh, the Earth is this like giant ball of iron, or it's a ball of this, or it's a ball of that, and why does lightning hit the Earth and go directly? Why does it all need to go to the center of the planet? um it's so, the idea of in movies of us or aliens going to a planet and terraforming it, like Mars, terraforming Mars back into a livable, breathable world. But it's always the concept that it starts as a natural random ball of stuff. When I think the ley lines, now that I'm thinking of it just now in real time, I think the ley lines are an intentional energy grid planned out as part of, again, it could be that we found them, and some of them may have developed themselves over time, but I think it's might be plausible to think that the surface wasn't, or the atmosphere wasn't just terraformed. Those ley lines could absolutely be part of a planned magnetic, in quotes, wiring of the planet, as part of um, making a habitable world. It may not be random at all. The entire thing, right down to the planet, and then the future existence of the moon.
Does anything seem random to you? Anything?
Our general conversation.
I mean, those are always random, but does
It,
anything about existence, like about the way that the earth was made, formed, humanity on it, just the way that we've evolved, the way that our bodies are machines, we've got these amazing networks in our mind and our gut, and you know, n- you think about, like, if what is it? So with what is it? So within, and what is it? So as it is above, but it is below. How does that go? How did that? What's happening? How am I butchering this?
as it is
So
above,
below,
it is
as it is
below.
below, so below. I don't know, but you know what I mean. It's like it's in everything that we learn in spirituality is the universe is inside us. Like everything is inside us. There is nothing outside of us. It's all inside. and everything that we see outside is just a projection. And so I just think like, I don't know that, I think that there are random things, free will humans walking around on the planet, just unconscious making, there are random happenings. But as far as the creation of existence and the way that we are made, as above, so below. Thank you. Oh my God. That's how I spell my name. That's awesome. Thanks, Kristi. Um, so it's as above, so below. She nailed it. Why was that so hard? Um,
I got friends.
but I'm thinking like it's not random. If you think about it, like as we're talking about this, and I think that we're both having a similar realization is, you know, the way that everything is planned. You don't build a house without having a plan to wire it, right? If you're in the
Exactly.
first world, you know.
Right. So I'm starting to think that we didn't just terraform the surface. I really think that maybe the entire thing down to if we remotely understood what was in the core, I don't think it's random. I don't think it's random gases. Other planets might be random, maybe, but it seems to be that the Earth itself as a livable, as what it's been designed for, it seems like maybe the very indications of the energy grid of the planet seems to show intent.
Hmm.
Ex-
Right?
and yeah,
When you think about so you when you start tracing the ley lines and you run through the pyramids and the Bermuda Triangle and what is that one? There's that third one that or the
the
second like the
the
Bermuda
dragon
Triangle, but the
the dragon
dragon's
triangle, the
tail
one
or something triangle. Yeah,
yeah,
dragons, whatever.
yeah, the one
Um,
that's south of Japan and whatever in the Asia there. Yeah,
yeah, yeah. So when you start like when you start mapping these significant, energetic places on the planet, and they all line up straight across the planet.
yeah.
So were those built because how did they know? Like how did they know where to build so precisely?
Hmm. When you look at the oldest, like you said, megalithic ruins, when you look at the oldest advanced cultures that we at least we can see, they're building, or like again the Great Pyramid, 1/60th of a second off of north by south by 1/60th of a second. This is a precision brought by a people that were clearly capable, I think, of not just external measurements, but the designing of a planet. I don't think is out of the realm. The designing of a scale like a planetary scale, I don't think is impossible. So the very core of the planet, the way it's rotating and moving, the energy grid, the ley lines, it all seems to be part of an intentional construction,
Hmm.
possibly.
I so we have about 10 minutes. And there is something that I want to hit, and you can't make fun of me for this, which I know you won't, so it's fine. Um,
You self-edited all the way through it. Go for it.
all right, ready for this? So, do you think we can control the weather? Do you think somebody is controlling the weather? Because here, do we find it odd that our administration has now, and we're not getting political, but our administration has now cut funding for like the National Weather Service and NOAA, and then we have this massive flash flood in South Texas. And we have another massive flash flood in New Mexico. And that's odd to me. And I'm just not that the two are related, that we cut funding and now we're getting flash floods, but I'm just, anything's possible. And I'm just always thinking like, are there people pulling the strings here? Is somebody controlling the weather?
Um, there we have some articles from some of our friends like Aaron that we could, I think, in a future
Cujo?
episode. yes, we should clearly go into these are government uh, public. They're not redacted, but they clearly show the government has been, at least the American government has been messing with weather for a long time. And so we should do a whole show about, yeah, that's a reality. They've been trying to mess with weather for a long time, and to the extent that it is, I think it's frustrating in that they're doing it, but their ability to truly affect the weather is kind of like dropping a pebble in the ocean. I think it's really frustrating that they can have maybe some pretty disastrous results, like these tragic situations. Are they entirely natural? Are they the side effect of some experiment going wrong? I mean, I think that's a possibility. What do you think?
I don't know. I think everything's possible. So
So it's a maybe. Okay. Okay.
who knows?
Okay. Okay. So, uh, for should we stick on weather for a minute?
I mean, we can. We don't have to. I do think that it's suspicious, but I think everything's suspicious though. So
Yeah, but specifically the weather is a timely topic, and it is something that's been messed with. There were the chemtrail thing is definitely a conversation to be had, and how and why the weather would be affected, for what purpose or design. I mean, we could definitely talk extensively about that, and it's
population
sad.
control
Oh no, you didn't just say that. You just theoretically.
for entertainment purposes only.
Yeah, we're not talking about culling anything other than sheep or something. Yeah.
Entertainment
So
purposes only.
thank you for covering that.
Oops.
Perfect.
Okay, moving on. Yeah. So, what do we have coming up next week?
I think it's really good. I mean, for everyone who doesn't know, we just hosted the Michael Cremo webinar for his new book release. And what we have coming up next week is, I think we should get to more of the news, including, I think we should dig a little bit into the weather thing. I think that's a good thing for us to have brought up, and for you to brought up for us to talk about. I think we should talk a little bit about the history of some of the programs for weather manipulation. So next week, I think that would be
Hmm.
good. The future, I think we should give people a heads up that we are going to be in the very near future doing a podcast with Michael Cremo together. And I don't mean we're interviewing him. I mean, we're going to co-host a new podcast with Michael. We're going to still do ArchaeoX. So I think we should talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so that's really exciting. So we're going to do a podcast with Michael Cremo moving forward. He's in Barcelona right now at a consciousness conference. So we can't wait to hear all about that when he gets back. But yeah, so when he gets back, we're going to start a couple times a month recording with Michael Cremo. The podcast is called The Forbidden Archaeologist. So we're really excited to, God, this man is just a encyclopedia of information,
Yeah.
and I am ready to dig in. Yes, I'm
Yeah.
so excited.
Yeah. It's
How
going to
do
be
you feel
really,
about it? What are your thoughts?
um, I've been, I can barely let it sink in because I've been so, on one hand I've been busy. On the other hand, it's like, again, over so many years, it's like I included his work when I wrote, and then oh man, wow, I get to interview him, and I get to interview him a bunch, and then it's like, okay, that's cool. And then one day here I am at a conference speaking with him, and then it's like, well, that's mind blowing. And then it's like, okay, well, we're going to interview him for, you and I are going to interview him for our new podcast, and then we get to interview him, and we're going to release those. Because we have so many great hours with him that he generously shared, and now, the evolution to now we're co-hosting a podcast with work and who he is and consciousness and where at. It's like I have feelings more than I'm using words, but I only have feelings about it. Big
Yeah,
feelings.
yeah, I'm excited.
Me too.
It's gonna be fun.
It really
Just like this.
is.
This has been fun. This was a good show. I'm happy to be back. I know that last. I don't even feel like I was really back. I feel like I'm just now back. Does that make sense?
It does. So we should talk more about your trip, and we should get more into the stories that we've missed, and we should get to the other topics that we brought up. I think we're actually going to have a pretty busy episode. We might have to like cut some things out or go
Yeah.
longer.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, join us next week, guys, at 8 o'clock on Wednesday, the whatever date it is.
All right. We'll see
Yeah.
you then.
Until then. All right. Good night.